Hey everyone, this is Dave with Valor Fire Training, and we are live for our first live stream episode. I just want to thank everybody for taking time out of your evening to join us. We're going to be talking about aggressive search tactics, and we got a bunch of really cool stuff in store for you guys. So, for those of you watching on Facebook and YouTube, just a couple of reminders. You guys can actually use the chat function to ask questions, and we will see them and post them up on the screen. And this should be really interactive, so it should be fun. But please take time to comment or ask questions if you want. So I'm going to bring in our co-hosts. So we have Sean Duffy and Logan Watts. So how's it going, guys?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. So when we talked about doing this, we talked about doing a live stream and kind of talking about some of the tactics and strategies that we hold near and dear to our hearts. So when we talk about search culture and search things, it's not just a punchline. It's not just lip service. It's something that we wholeheartedly believe in, and we teach a lot. So why don't you guys kind of talk about why search tactics are important to you, and what you guys want to talk about tonight, and then we'll start bringing in some of our guests and talking about search.
Yeah, Logan, do you want to hit it off or?
Sure. Why not, man? So search, search is basically put. It is the one. It is the fire ground that every other job supports, right? So think about, and I'm sure some of our engine heavy guys will argue this, but fire suppression, ventilation, any of that stuff is there to support you. At the end of the day, what is our goal? Our goal is to save lives, right? Our goal is to put ourselves between the problem and that victim by causing, getting out there and being part of the solution. So why search is big to me as part of the fire service, in my eyes, it's the most important part. And the thing about it is you've got to be a dude to go out and be aggressive, be aggressive when you search. So it's just something near and dear to my heart as far as things go, because I don't feel like in years leading up to things, like search is kind of taking the back seat. We put more of a emphasis on survivability profiling. We put more of an emphasis on, exterior nozzle attacks to make the condition safer for us. That's great, but what's going to happen when you steam the shit out of that room and, Mrs. is laying on the floor in her nightie just because you wanted to make sure it was a little safer for you? We're the ones wearing the PPE. We're the ones that took the oath. We raised our right hand. We took that oath and said, hey, you have a problem, we're going to come for you. So start really following up that end of the deal. I think everybody needs to step back and realize, man, searches, we need to get better at search. So, you're going to hear me stand on a soapbox a couple times tonight as far as things go with that. But that's just the biggest thing right now, is making sure that us as a fire service, that we can realize the importance of search is bringing on. So that's my rant.
Yeah. No, and I echo a lot of that same stuff. Search became really important for me when I'm sitting there and I'm watching this kind of take a backseat to everything else on the fire ground. Stretching a second line before we have guys in, or not allowed to go in before we have a hand line, and things like that. And the data from Firefighter Rescue Survey has been instrumental in our push of why search should be priority. I don't know about anybody else, but when I went through Fire Academy, it was always told to me that life is our number one priority, and I don't believe that has ever changed. So when you go back and you look at it, that we have a small window of time from when we arrive to get inside and locate these victims and then remove them, if we have any chance of their surviving that environment, it's huge, and that's what drove me to it is, you'd come in second or third due and nobody's inside doing a search yet. They're putting water from the outside, or they're still trying to formulate a plan. And, we tend to put a lot of emphasis on a 360, which is not bad, but we weren't putting enough emphasis on the 360 for search, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it's real simple. Can I occupy that space? If the answer is yes, then go occupy that space. Because as searchers, we've got to get into the mindset that we're not just searching for people, we're also searching for the fire. So if we get there and we happen to be able to get in, yeah, that's a tremendous benefit for everybody, because what can we do? We can isolate that fire, right? Prevent it from getting bigger. We can also tell the fire attack team, hey, I located your fire. It's down the hall to the left, or wherever that location happens to be. And then we can start going to searching, right? We can start isolating compartments and ventilating and doing the things that we need to do that help support life and increase their survivability odds. So that was half of it for me. The other half is just poor techniques, man. Like, we're still teaching things that are taught 30 years ago, and it kills me because it's just not practical for the fire ground we face anymore. And there's a certain time and place to implement certain tactics, but a primary search, man, that is fast, very fast, quick search. And this whole like crawling, holding on to each other, searching the same 3 feet your partner did, like, that's just not cutting it. There's a huge difference between searching for a victim and accidentally stumbling upon a victim,
Absolutely.
And I just felt that there was more emphasis that needed to be placed on the, hey, now that we're inside, there's a ton of things that we need to do if we want to be successful here. And one of those things is changing how we search, changing our search techniques, changing our communication, just all around, get in there and do what you need to do, because I can't say for anybody else, but take the victims out of it. I don't want to be in a burning building longer than I have to be. Right. So, when you're talking about a primary search that's supposed to be quick, taking 10, 15 minutes to complete, that's just not acceptable. So that's what drove me to be passionate about it. I got tired of looking at the fire and it not being done, and then us pulling bodies out in overhaul that we probably could have gotten to several minutes before and given them a chance at survival.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And, everybody has their reasons, but, everybody that was going to be on the show tonight has, the most noble of intentions. I mean, it's not, we're not just doing it as a punchline. Like I said, it's these are all people that, believe in it, live it, teach it. So a couple things, Mitchell Hunter called us nerds. Yep. You got that right. We're nerds. So that is for sure. Also, Andy Stars said, can I occupy that space? If the answer is yes, go occupy that space. Hell yeah. Absolutely. We talk about, survivable spaces and, how do we know what that actually is? So I want to bring in a couple of our guests. I'm going to bring everybody in so that we can kind of get to discussing and talking. So, Justin, why don't you go ahead and give your introduction real quick? Just kind of tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and why you're here.
Yeah, Justin Fraze, the Colony Fire Department, 20-something years in the fire service. Why else are we here other than to search for people? When you think about firemen, what do they do? Like, the big dudes, badass guys are going to come in there and come get you when you had a problem. And that's just the guy that I wanted to be. Got into on the teaching side after going to some classes and watching some guys search and seeing the technique just wasn't there. I'm like, how are guys still not understanding how this works? And just kind of went from there. Sean and I met a couple years ago at a class we both got invited to teach, and like 10 seconds into meeting each other, we know, like, hey man, we are the same dude, like the same mission, and like, right. Yeah, just nipple kisses and yeah, just we just become best friends. Yeah,
right.
Man, and,
hell yeah, we did.
and that's how I wound up here, man.
Good. No, that's awesome, man. So Tim Zender said, "Looking good, my brother." So thanks, Tim. We appreciate that. Mitchell also came back and wanted to clarify that he meant that he loves us and to keep it up. I think he thought that we were. I think he thought that we were giving him crap. Okay, so our next guest is Ryan Cummings. So Ryan, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody kind of who you are, where you're from, and why you are here.
Yeah, so I've got it'll be 20 years next month with Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department. I've worked primarily Midtown. Just finished up with Rescue 9, driving them for the last 3.5 years, and then just got promoted to captain. So, in Kansas City, I worked with Chad Daly, if you guys know those guys, and we just work all the time and train on fire department tactics and stuff like that. So searching is one of the big ones with Chad. And if any of you guys were down at Wichita just last week, that was one of the things he really touched on was really want to search and stuff. And I'll talk about it again, but the Instabook and what they teach us, it's the Instabook company. I mean, they're in it to make money, so those things are outdated. Like the somebody touched on it earlier that grabbing somebody's foot, you can only get so far, so you gotta change things up and but yeah, that's why I'm here, man. Just talking about search and trying to make this job better.
Absolutely. All right, so we're gonna bring in our next guest, Shane Bentley. So Shane, what's up, man?
What's up, fellas? How you doing?
Good. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I think the internet's trying to block me out anyways. I'm trying to bounce it off my phone.
Yeah. Well, we can see you. So why don't you just tell everybody who you are and kind of your background and what you're doing?
Shane Bentley, firefighter in Northeast Georgia, small town department, 2 stations, Cornelia Fire Department. Been in the fire service 18 years. So, man, just like you guys, I was listening to a little bit of what all of you were saying, or Logan and you and Duffy were talking about a minute ago, and said it's don't call it a soapbox, but I call it our passion that we share together, man. And it's simply, no matter how you look at it, is if we continue to get better, search is priority, and that has to be a priority of what we do. Some people still disagree with it. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. All right, so I know everybody is kind of looking at their mics or trying to figure out what's going on. There's some sort of clicking something in the background. So, if anybody has like a weird mic plugged in, or
yeah, I'm here too, but I don't have anything plugged in.
I don't know.
We'll stop there for a second.
It went away. There it is.
As soon as we stop talking, it starts going. It might be me. Hold on a second. Let's find out. Hold on.
I was going to say, if it's the guy with the most expensive setup.
All right, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah. Oh, there it is.
Man, I'm going to have to change mics. Okay, so I'm just going to talk for a second, then I'm going to turn it over to you guys, and you guys can take it away. So I want you guys to talk about aggressive search tactics and why it's important, kind of where we're at in the fire service, where you think we need to be. Can you hear me now?
Good.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So talk about aggressive search tactics, kind of why we're doing what we're doing as far as the teaching realm and where you think we need to be in the future. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and troubleshoot my mic.
So Sean, you're the professional host. Go get after it.
Yeah, I can't hear Dave. So pretty much here's what I'm going to say about the search thing. All right. When we start looking at our environments that we're finding our victims in, I cannot stand the survivability profiling. All right. 2 reasons. 1, if you really want to know what's going inside of that building, you have to get in that building. There's no question about it. Okay. 2, we're writing victims off way too easy just based off of perceptions of what we see from the outside. Right. When there's all kinds of variables that go in there, for example, we preach the close before you doze campaign, which has been pretty successful. 26% of our victims are being found behind closed doors. They have like an 86% survival rate from that. So, when we sit there and we tell them to do these things, and we have to follow up on our end of the bargain too, right? Of, hey, I'm telling you, if you close your door, I'm going to come get you. And then we don't, because we say what? Oh, based off of survivability profiling, nobody could be alive in there. And that's just not for us to decide. Our jobs are very simple. We don't guess the odds of them surviving that environment, right? We give them the best odds that we possibly can by being aggressive and occupying those spaces before we no longer have the opportunity to do so. Everything on a fire will be searchable at some point, but we have to focus our efforts on what's searchable now. So what I tell everybody is you got a couple of choices. Can I remove the victim from this environment, right? Search. Or can I have to remove the environment from this victim first? Fire attack. Those are your two options that you have initially. It breaks it down to pretty much like we either create and maintain searchable space or we keep from losing the ones that we already have. So we're spending way too much time on the exterior trying to figure this all out because of things like 2 in, 2 out, or I need a RIT team and things like that. And anybody who follows Project Mayday, what you'll find is that there's no conclusive evidence that 2 in, 2 out actually works. And it definitely doesn't work for our civilians. You know, when we go into rescue mode, which we should be doing every time if possible, then all that goes out the window anyway, right? So point I'm getting at is less than 8 minutes, 6 minutes, somewhere around that. You have a 66% chance that if you locate a victim, they're gonna survive that environment. How many departments are pulling the air brake, getting off, and looking at that immediately as a priority before that 6 to 8 minute window is lost? And that's really where we need to focus our efforts on and get better at, hey, the more people we have in there, the safer it is for everybody, right? Yeah. So if I know that most of the time, if something happens, I'm going to be rescued by another interior crew, or I can self-rescue myself, then why are we labeling this as something so dangerous that we have to wait till 4 or more people are on scene to get this job done? It just blows my mind that we teach that, you know, and we have the data to prove that that's not necessarily efficient.
So yeah. Duffy, like, I'm going to hit on real quick. You talked about the whole close before you doze thing. So what's the thing? Every fire department in the nation, doesn't matter where you're at, they love to take part in fire prevention week, right? Get out, put the trucks out, take the kids. It's a great cause, right? We get out in front of these kids, and hopefully we inspire them to come and be part of the revolution someday. But like you said, if we're going to sit there and we're going to tell them, hey, close your door, things are going to be okay, we're going to get to you, we got to be dialed in. So you just talked about, you know, less than 8 minutes, right? That's usually what we're looking at. If you look at firefighter rescue survey, when are most of our fires with entrapment and rescues happening? In the middle of the night, right? That 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. window, I think. And I could be wrong by a couple hours there, but just by going off of that from memory standpoint, when is the longest response time for us? In the middle of the night, right? So you look at, you know, a good fire department, we're out the door on a structure fire maybe in 1 minute and 30 seconds. Let's say we've got, you know, 3 minute travel time. We're pulling up and we're setting the air brake around 5 minutes, 5:30. If we don't have if we don't got our shit together and search isn't a priority, we've got roughly 3 minutes left. And that's not, you know, that's if we open that front door and we're initially introducing a blast of fresh air. So we've got to prioritize our search, because us saying that, hey, we're going to come for you, and us actually prioritizing it and coming for you is two completely different things. And we can't sit in the back seat. We cannot just sit in the back seat and say, oh yeah, you know, we've got our gear on. We can show these kids, hey, we're going to put all of our gear on. This mask helps us breathe hot air, you know, breathe through the environment, if we're not willing to go do that. And we don't always have to go through the front door. I think that's one thing that I see whenever we go training is everybody always wants to go through the front door. We preach on transitional fire attack through a window. Mellon and I kind of talked about at one point in time, what's wrong with a transitional search, starting it as a VES. If I open that door, hey man, this hallway's good. Hey, I'm going to bump down to the next room and keep working off of that. Like you said, find that survivable space, find the place where we're going to find those victims and go after it. Don't just tell them we're coming after them. Make sure that we're there and make sure that we're damn well putting ourselves between the problem and them and getting them out and being part of the solution. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. And I love that you bring that up, because you go on like U.S. Fire Administration and things like that, you can pretty much find anything that you want to find, right? it's like 31% of our victims are, fatalities were sleeping. And 37% of them are like, they're escaping, right? So if we know that 31% are sleeping when we find them and 37% are escaping, then really what we have to focus on is predictable behavior patterns, right? I know that my greatest chance of finding them 18 out of 24 hours a day is going to be the bedrooms. So let's start there if possible. My second most and third most is going to be hallways and family rooms, all of which tend, for the most part, to be close to each other. So like you said, the front door. Hey, man, I'll tell you right now. The window, mode of entry, that's all it is. We will lose our minds when we put 2 guys through a window to do a search, but we're perfectly okay with dumping 6, 7, 8 guys through the front door to start from a location that is further from our victim versus getting in there where they're most likely to be right now. And I think that's where we need to start or stop labeling our tactics that we choose as cowboy or being dangerous. And, just the problem is people don't understand it. So it's easier to place a label on it and say, no, we don't do that here. Or we're not going to train on that because it's dangerous and it's just going to get you hurt than it is to truly understand it, the reason behind what we're doing and how it impacts our civilians. If we can shift our minds to that, just imagine how much more survival we're going to have when we do find a victim.
Oh, right? Absolutely.
I mean, to me, we used to put the top finder stickers on windows, right? That was like the first initial like VES here thing. And those went away. And I think when those went away, so did the need to really prioritize those rooms because there's no longer a sticker there. And firemen, for the most part, let's just say it, we're not that bright, right? We have to have everything. Everything's got to be spelled out for us. Like, hey, if this, then do this. You took that one thing away, and then people just kind of tend to forget about it. And maybe that wasn't intentional, but it blows my mind when we go around and we start teaching tactics, how this is the first time people are hearing anything about this.
Right.
Right. It's like that would not happen at McDonald's. You go to McDonald's and you say, I want a Big Mac. They know exactly how to make it. They know exactly what you're talking about. But here in the fire service, you say window initiated search. People go, what the hell does that mean?
Right.
Right. And that's the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to take a second just to listen. I know Ryan, being in Kansas City, Missouri, and Shane being in in the South. The tactics, depending, because we're kind of all over the place, right? People are in all these different stuff. But what are your guys's thoughts? What are your guys's feelings on search, and where we're at? Like currently, like what are you guys, like Ryan, what are you guys teaching in Kansas City, Missouri? Shane, what are you guys teaching when you're out doing classes that varies from the IFSA book? And I want to hear that from you guys because I know that's a discussion that we've had before.
So
go ahead, Ryan.
So in Kansas City, like I want to be honest, a lot of the stuff that I learned was from Chad Daly. Great mentor of mine, and but one of the things is you have to have that mindset. You gotta, when you're a fire, you have to know that you're going to go find somebody. That's what we're public servants. The key, we're here for the public. So go fire, his mind find somebody. But I'm going to steal this kind of from Mike Lombardo or Lombard, however the heck you say his name. I'll screw that one up. He said the other day that the trash guys, they don't turn the corner and they're excited to see, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that there was going to be here. That's really what they're there. Firemen, we got to do the same thing. We turn where we see a house on fire, and same thing, when we turn a corner in a hallway, we're going to go find somebody. You can't be shocked. Oh my goodness, there's somebody there. That's why we're there. So you got to check that I'm going to find somebody. And I'm going to go flip the entire room. If you guys don't know, or if anybody doesn't know what flipping a room means, you literally got to have your hands on everything in that room and flip it. You can't just kind of sweep the room. You'll miss a dog, kid, a family member, or something like that. You have to, grab a pile of clothes and pick that up and try something in there. Same thing with the beds. I mean, we used to, back in the day, you used to take a mattress, kind of flip the thing over so you knew that it was, surge thing. I mean, grab a hold of those sheets. Finally, it's that mentality. You can't walk through a house and expect to give an all clear on a primary. You got to be on your hands and knees, and like really, getting after it. And that's what we're there for. And I think that's kind of been what people get laxed, at least in the city, anyways. And I'm not talking crap on anybody, but we're in there to fight fire, and to be honest, doing a search, not fighting fire and pulling. I mean, it's kind of the non-glorious thing, but I mean, you got to be in there and go do your jobs. That's just kind of my take. Chad and Paul go and train. That's what we would go do. Is go learn how to search.
Oh, absolutely. So Shane, what are your? Because I know you and I had this discussion when we were down in Oklahoma.
So there was a question from Andy Starks, vent for life searches. I'm a huge fan. We vent for life, we vent for fire. That's pretty known. As long as fire tech is making progress on the fire or the fire is isolated, UL in their Governor Island study found that taking a window for ventilation has little to no effect on the fire itself. So as searchers, as we go and we're closing spaces, yes, absolutely, we need to be ventilating for life, because here's a couple things. One, you get that lift so you can see, right? So it increases our visibility. Two, toxic stuff is going out, so it's better environment for the victim. But three, think about it. We talked about primary search being very fast. God forbid we go in and we miss somebody, which happens, right? By taking that window and venting for life, you actually left them in a better environment. So hopefully, if you research that room, they have a better chance of surviving than if you did not take that window. So we don't definitely want to just go blindly taking windows for ventilation. It's definitely got to be coordinated and communicated that that's what's happening. But again, understand why you're doing the things you're doing and understand what the benefit of them are for you and the civilian. And I think venting for life is definitely one of the best things we can do if we're able to while we're searching.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, does everybody agree with that?
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So Shane, I want to hear your thoughts. And you and I had that discussion when we were down in Oklahoma.
What about you, Justin? You got anything?
Oh no, I'm just listening to this thing. I'm all about venting for life. I'm in on that. But the structures that I'm searching, like our little 1,400 square foot Fox in a box, like I'm in and out of that room generally before I'm actually before that room's going to have a chance to clear out. So if we vent that, like we're venting it as part of hey, this is our search. We vented this window, but I'm going to be out of that thing before it clears out. But I'm making a better situation for my guys going to come back and do that secondary search later after we clear that primary.
Shane, you got anything?
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to reiterate a lot of what Ryan said. A lot of our instruction and what we teach here at home is a lot of what we've learned over the years from guys like yourself. We don't even look at any kind of ifs to manual right now. Even when we start, even when new guys coming in, whether they're certified or not, we get them the first day and we hit it hard for a long time. Basic engine company operations and search being the priority. You should be able to anybody should be able to take and stretch a line off a truck and get it to the door somewhere, wherever you need it to. That doesn't, not to say that that's not needed, but our priority is, because we are very low staffed, that search is the priority. Even if the structure is burning, that's not first priority. First priority is search and rescue. It's not clear till we say it's clear. Every job gets the same attention. We respond to fire alarms the same way. And that's where the hashtag kind of came last year with the 15-inch. We respond to every call, whether it's a possible, confirmed, or a fire alarm, with the mindset of 15 children and 25 adults inside of a structure. And that way we keep our mindset prepared for it every time. and it can't get much worse than that. So when you get there with the mentality that there's 40 individuals in this house or the structure, no matter if it's 1,400 square foot or 3,000 square foot, it's not clear till we say it's clear. And when you put the efforts into search and rescue in your, I think Duffy or somebody said it right at the beginning, when you start talking about techniques is what really gets you, what really makes you profound at how good you are with your perception of where you're entering from, whether it's the first or second floor, elevated floor, not the front door or window. It doesn't matter. Having the perception and being able to have the familiarity with whether it's a ranch on a basement, if it's just a
Bentley go bye-bye?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But I'll kind of jump on what I kind of where Bentley was going there. And we've all kind of talked about it. And I mean, I'm throw IFSTA under the bus here for a second, but so why, we always talk about this. This is one thing that I get irritated with, and I know all you guys, we all share the same view, is we talk IFSTA, and how many of you guys have had new guys where you've had to teach them how we do it, and you've also had to teach them, hey, we got to teach you how to pass this test. This IFSTA book test. So why, please someone explain to me why we're putting emphasis on an IFSTA test where guys have the probability of failing their partner because they lost track of their ankle, when the real test is at 3 a.m. when you have a fully involved structure with, in 25 rule in it, like Bentley was saying. Why is that not an emphasis of, hey, that's our test? Why is it we're putting so much emphasis and we're teaching these guys, hey, we're going to search this clear concrete room. You're going to go around on the right side and you're going to sweep with your tool. And if you can't get it into the middle, you're going to have to stack bodies to get out to it. Why are we teaching that? But, we're not looking at what the real test is going to be. And that real test is going to be rolling out of quarters at 3 a.m., half asleep, trying to get woke up, trying to figure out what the heck is going on as you're rolling lights and sirens down your main streets to a structure fire with, confirmed entrapment. That's the true test. And if we're not training every single day and taking our oath seriously to prepare for that test, we're all in the wrong profession, guys.
I agree. Man, you can teach. You know what? Just because somebody can't pass that test on the first time doesn't mean that they're not a good firefighter. It doesn't mean that they have the potential to be great at this job. They just might have a hard time learning and understanding that test. So, but we never hit. We don't even get into PowerPoints. We prepare them for the first year before we ever touch. We have a in Georgia, and they dictate that, hey, within 1 year's time, this guy, doesn't matter how good or how great he could be, he's got to be able to pass this test. So we don't even start looking at that till a couple months out, because we spend as much time as we possibly can hands-on with them every day. I mean, when you go to jobs and guys are bringing out cats, animals, and that just is when they're fighting hide.
Can you guys hear me?
And they're doing it right.
Yeah.
And they're constantly taking, going to classes and meeting guys like yourself.
Man, I think we have decided that we are going to do a different stream platform. This is
That's crazy. I must have walked over you like 3 times already, Dave.
Oh, it's weird because like half the time it'll be okay, and then the other half of the time it's.
So with everything that is good in the fire service, right? This is like typical firefighter stuff. Like everything worked great when we tested it. Everything worked awesome. And now everything has gone to shit. So bear with us for this episode, and next episode we are going to find something that works. And the one thing that I love, and listening to you guys talk and listening to the way that you guys are discussing how we teach it and how we want it to be done, we keep going back to the books, the IFSA, the Jones of Bartlett, stuff like that. I think truly, we can sit there and say like, oh, it's, the book. I think it's the instructors. I mean, we have the book, right? But I've been sitting there fighting how we're going to not teach the book for like 5 to 7 years. And I keep getting pushback from, the powers that be, because God forbid we don't teach what's in the book. So it kind of falls back to us.
Oh yeah. So I'm running this issue. Fire Academy starts tomorrow. I got their first PT session with me in the morning. Can't wait.
Lucky dog.
But it's going to be glorious. So much suffering, but we have to find that balance. So again, I hate teaching to the book, but I think it's just laziness. Like, here is this book, here is this curriculum that we've purchased for this program, so this is what we're going to go with. And then, I'm going to blast through this PowerPoint. Okay, cool. Did y'all get that? Sweet. It's your job to read the book. Now we're going to go outside and we're going to learn how to knee slide, and we're going to learn what a proper surge technique looks like, and we're going to get comfortable in our gear, and we're going to get out there and work on this. And it falls 100% back on the instructors. Okay, that we have to make the fire service what we want it to be, and build these new folks up into how we want them. How we see the fire service, where we want to see it go. It's our job to start building that at that level. And then inside of our own organizations, we see deficiencies, bringing people up to speed and doing what we can to change stuff at the level that we're at.
Yeah, and I think the other problem with that, Justin, is we got a lot of paper firemen out there.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So you meet the requirements to be an instructor, and that's all fine. You pass the test, and that somehow qualifies you. But there's a lot of people that are teaching in their department or at the academy, hell, even at the local, regional, or national level, that they just don't have that level of experience to really give. So they're only going to be able to teach what they know. And the downside of that is the students, right, or the people within those organizations are looking to those individuals for guidance. No. So realistically, I think we need to do a better job vetting the people who are teaching these fire skills and say, hey, okay, listen, the state says we have to follow this curriculum. Cool. We're going to blast through it. Now I'm going to show you the real world shit. Yeah. And I'm going to show you what works and what doesn't. And I'm going to tell you why, because I have the experiences to put behind it. Right. Yeah. And that just doesn't happen.
So Dave McGlynn just commented that paper fireman, that's his line. So whoever stole that.
Oh, dang.
Man.
That'd be the express written of Dave McGlynn.
Listen, man, that is one dude that you do not want to make mad. You do not want to
No. I don't want to.
But no, and it's so funny to me because when you are, and you guys hit the nail on the head, like when we talk about teaching students and doing the things that we need to be able to do, like, yes, there is the book and there is the way, but we're holding ourselves back. We are crippling ourselves because we're teaching to the book and we're putting firefighters out there with the expectation that they can pass the test, because that's the most important thing. That's the most important thing to 99.9% of the program directors in this country is the effing pass rate. That's it, right? Yeah. That's what they're worried about. They don't care about whether the students can be functional. They don't care whether or not they know exactly what they're doing. They go, it's fine. The fire departments that they get hired on will teach them. Well, for some departments, that's great. You go into a 14-week academy or an 18-week academy or a 20-week academy. But the departments that they go to that don't have an academy, or it's a 1 week abridged, like, hey, guess what? Here's the keys to the ambulance. Here's the wheels to the truck, and go. Okay? That's what we're up against. And so that's the pivotal issue that we see a lot on the instructor side going into the students is that they're thirsty for knowledge. They want that knowledge. They're a sponge. But then we're handicapped because we can't give them that knowledge because it doesn't say it on page 75. Yeah. So I get kind of pissed off about this, and I'm sorry, but it's just as an instructor who has taught for multiple different places, right? Like, I mean, I've taught on my own through Valor Fire Training. I've taught through a community college. I've taught at conferences. There's different levels of like what you can teach and what you can get away with.
Oh yeah.
And so we all got to get on the same page. Like at some point, we all have to get on the same page.
Well, we need to write our own book. Like we need like dudes. It doesn't need to be like, hey, OSU, appreciate you guys who haven't really been in a fire in like the last 100 years or so. Like, let's put together this terrible animation, and this is how we search. And we need like the David Mellons and the Sean Duffys and the Brian Brushes and Justin McWilliams and Nick Ledeen's to put together a manual.
Yeah.
So guys, if you're out there, please put one together. Start writing.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Justin.
We're gonna need more crayons.
Yeah, more crayons. Justin McWilliams actually published one for his department.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Clackamas. And I read it. It's like 46 pages. Man, that thing is awesome. So I would recommend to anybody watching to find yourself a copy and read it and understand it, because he does an excellent job of breaking down the why and the how. And this is where Logan comes in, because I know he wants to talk about dirty grabs, but that's all in there too. So,
all right, real quick. When Dave was going on his rant about IFSTA and we were talking about the book, Andy Stars had a comment. I love the term dirty grabs that is talked about often on the Grabs podcast. Grab limbs and just go. We fail in training when we teach our guys to find them, when we find a dummy with webbing already attached to them. So one thing that we always talk about too, while we're on the whole the IFSTA topic right now, has anybody looked at an IFSTA book and shown how they're teaching to drag? It's literally like a notebook on, hey, these are some really good EMS carries. It's like, let's go ahead and let's put this person in a chair. Let's carry them out this way. I don't know, you guys, I'm a paramedic, as stupid as that is. But the last time I checked, my dumb fireman in me, the bad air is up here and the good stuff is down low. So why in the heck are we putting their airway up into that environment?
You don't
then you start talking.
Damn wall.
No. And then we start talking, like us guys, when we're talking drags, lifts, carries, what's the one priority for me when I'm teaching a drag is I want that head as low as possible, right? So I'm going to pick up legs. I'm going to take legs. I've got one that I teach where you take a shirt back and you pull the shirt up through the collar and you're able to drag with that and you almost make a webbing around their arms. But every single drag that I'm trying to teach, myself, my guys, when we go around, when we're lucky enough to go around and learn with other people, is worst case scenario, but we're dragging that person as low as we can and getting him to A, an area of refuge, or B, in a place where we can get him out. The other thing too is we practice all these drags in this EMS standpoint, like, hey, this is an extremity drag. Hey, you're going to scoop them up underneath the arms and drag them backwards. How many 185-pound people are you guys going on a regular basis?
Mm-hmm. Right.
No, and that's not to be mean or anything like that.
They're 400 pounds.
Yes. So that's one thing. Where we talk about, we give drags a very, very little time frame in our Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2 books. So, we give search a little bit of time, but the biggest thing is us as instructors, we need to take a step back and everybody wants to teach search. Everybody wants to teach the oriented. Everybody wants to teach the split search, VES, however it be. But we find the victim. Then what, right? And Duffy, I know you're big on this too. How many guys know how to get someone out of a window without absolutely killing themselves?
Yeah, no, and that's a great point, Logan, because here's the problem. Hose dummies and mannequins manipulate very differently than a real person, okay? And I understand that we can't put live victims in live fire scenarios. However, what we can do is we can run those same scenarios with theatrical smoke and put live victims in there and let people feel what it feels like to put your hand on a real person. And one of the things that I tell my students when we're teaching search is, how much weight can you move alone? You'd be amazed on how many people don't know the answer to that. And it's very, very important that you do, because when you go to put your hands on somebody and you go to pull, right, you're going to know immediately how much that weight is. And if it's too much for you, if you're going to need help right then and there, right? We have to understand our victims do not get to choose their rescuers any more than we as the rescuers get to choose who our victims are. Okay. So like you said, not everybody's 180 pounds, right? You might have to move a 400 pound victim. That's reality. What is your plan? Have you trained on a drag that helps you move weight? And inches are what I'm after. Okay, because if you and I are searching and we're doing a split search and I come across a victim and I say victim, 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 and I do all the things I need to do, why in God's earth am I going to sit there and do nothing? Right? We've got to start that removal process until you can come back and start to help me. What we do when we have webbing and all this other stuff attached to the dummies already is we give that false sense of security that we're going to immediately be able to grab a hold of somebody and move them ourselves. And that's just not the case, right? You got to be able to manipulate body weight and make it work in your favor, both for the drag and the removal process. You know, that's just reality. And you're right. We're not teaching that in Fire Academy. I mean, hell, you go to take a CPAT test, which most people use in the country now. How are they telling you how to grab? Push the dummy forward, lift under the arms, stand up, and walk backwards. That's what's ingrained in our mind, right? So how does that translate for us onto the fire ground or into other trainings that we do? It just gets repeated over and over and over. Or you see like the unrealistic scenario where, okay, I'm going to grab a hold of this dummy and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, push, 1, 2, 3, push, and you get them to the door, and what happens? We just slide them out like that's going to be reality, right? Removing a victim is going to probably be the most exhausting thing that you do on the fire ground. Think about it this way. You've already done a lot of work searching before you found that victim. Now you find them, and you're going to do even more work. So having a plan A to a plan Z is imperative because your plans aren't always going to work the way you want them to for every individual, right? So I dislike webbing.
Yep.
Go ahead. I was just going to say.
I was just going to.
Hey, both of you guys, shut up for a second.
Go ahead, Logan.
Good God, hold on, jeez. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, I wanted to say something real quick. So Ryan has been like, I can see his lips moving, like he's biting out at the bit to say something. So I'm going to unmute him. So hold on, just let him say one thing real quick, and then we'll get back. Go ahead. Yeah, now we can't hear him.
Yell louder.
Get a whiteboard.
Smoke signals.
Sign language.
I can't hear Dave or Ryan.
You can't hear me?
Sign language.
I read his lips, and he said that phrase dude is super fat on the screen.
Right?
Also true.
Boy, oh boy. All right. Ryan, can you hear us? No? All right, how about now?
He looks good, though.
He does. His
Handsome.
video's better.
If you just want to sit here and stare at him, like I'm down for that. That's good.
He's got good lighting.
All right, so I'm going to pull him out real quick for just a second, but I want to say this because somebody put a comment and I wanted to bring it up because it hit me in the feels, right? So Billy Blackwell said,
Can anyone hear Dave or Ryan?
Yeah, I can hear Dave.
Yeah, I got Dave.
okay. Yeah, it shows my bars are going out. So it says, how do we fix that when we have such limited time in the academies? And what he's talking about is how do we fix the issue, right? So as far as like how do we fix teaching stupid stuff, it's really easy. Don't teach stupid stuff. If I have a limited time in the academy, do I want to focus on teaching how to search holding ankles for 3 or 4 classes, or do I want to focus on how to do an actual search and have a coordinated, oriented search using thermal imaging cameras, vent enter search, vent enter isolate search, whatever the hell you want to call it? Do I want to focus on that, or do I want to focus on them searching an empty room holding ankles? That's the choice, right? And to me, I would rather spend time teaching how to do realistic searches in realistic environments with realistic victims so that they know exactly what it's like to take those victims out. So I love your question, Billy. That hits me in the feels, man. It really hits me in the feels because that's the issue that we've all been fighting for a long time.
Yeah. Like how do you do it? You just do it. Like you just do it. I'm going to tell these academy students tomorrow, the first day that they see me, hey, look, this is your job. I tell them they basically just showed up to an online class that they're going to take in person. The stuff that's in that book, they're responsible for. We're gonna hit the lectures and all that. My job is if I can get you through this academy, I'm going to give you all the information I have. I'm going to teach you how to search. I'm going to give you actual real techniques. And if you survive your first 24 hours in the firehouse then like I did my job. Like when you leave here and get a job, if we're not, we have to teach this the right way. What are we doing to the fire service if we're just okay, here's the IFSTA where I'm going to teach you how to elephant crawl down the hallway. We've done nothing. We haven't made it any better. We're just status quo. And that's just, try not to cuss a lot. I'm trying to, thank you, Shane. Like I'm in uniform and like, I'm actually on working, but yeah, dude, like, yeah, that's true. You're bad at it. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, you just do it. You just teach it. Teach the right way. That's it.
That's an investment.
Exactly.
Just an investment we took upon ourselves to be doing this right here. And that's
the first time that
we use, not to say that.
Are you okay? That looked like that hurt.
Limited time is the academy's just part of it. The academy's part of it. It's an investment to them because we owe it to them. If we don't, we ain't no better than the ones that's not doing it. Yeah. We can't use the academy as, well, what do you, not to make your question sound minute, but the thing is yes, whether they're in a private academy, a state academy, or you're a local academy within your jurisdiction or your department, the thing is, if they have to go, they have to go. But it's also our diligence to take in. If they're not, if you don't get the chance to have your hands on them the whole time, we chose a couple years back not to send ours to our state academy anymore, and that's not a dig or disrespect to the state academy. We wanted to train them in-house per how we do it. We run 2-man engines, so we got 4 people coming immediately, plus administration, and then whoever's coming with us that's working on a part-time slot. So we play, whether we got 6 on shift or not, we plan everything out for 2 and 2. And it doesn't matter if the rest of the world's coming. It's us four, the first and second engine, with 4 people. We have to be able to do it and do it good and be very good at it. Everything else coming is just a resource and just an advantage. But we might not get that. They might not make it. There might be somewhere else. There might be something else going on. So we have to train as we're the only 4, and this is what has to be done. And there's four tactics that have to be done every time, and they have to be accomplished. And we do that, but we train doing that. We've been somewhat successful with it. But at the same time, I don't know. He's talking about, I think techniques is probably one of the biggest words here of late that has finally surfaced. And Logan was talking about, or the thing came up. But the thing about the book, I don't know if you guys have read the 7th edition of Essentials, but I don't know what horticulturalist wrote that, because it damn sure wasn't firefighters. And I'd be honest with you, it's a disgrace that that's what we're taking and putting out into the fire service right now. And it's just like with everything else we talk about in the fire service, no matter what topic it is, there's a group of people that see things different, and there's a group of people that are just going to go by the minimum standard. And anytime you put minimum in front of anything that you do, you're not going to be the best, and you're not going to be successful.
Can you guys hear me tonight?
Yeah,
it's better.
I'll do. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Ryan's back. Let's let him talk for a second.
So I'm gonna hit this. Gonna be like a run-on sentence here, real fast. So earlier they were talking about. Expecting and like picking up, a heavy victim, whatever. Chad Daly and I came up with a drag strap, and you guys have probably seen this thing online and guys, running through different drills and stuff like that. That has completely changed how we've actually started grabbing people, and it's a lot easier. If any of you guys, I hate to drop that pin, but like drop at Wichita, he showed it and demonstrated. It's been huge with doing stuff. Like just dragging people out. It's been awesome. When we were talking about VS and stuff, and everybody now would isolate and search. Well, that was the
there's like 19 letters that go after it.
Yeah, you just keep adding stuff, and just somebody's gonna make it their own, So it's what we would do the entire time. We go in a room, we close things hard, make things better for that victim or that environment, anyways. But someone just had to put their own spin on it, and then what we publish or something. I guess seems like that's kind of the case too.
And then we lost him. I listen. So I want to say this real quick. So what he was talking about was that strap. It was all over Facebook. A couple people put it on there. It's amazing. But you know, it is basically a DRD strap that you run across your shoulders down the sleeve, and it sticks out right here at your wrist. I carry one in my gear just like that. And it's amazing. It works. Ryan, I'm just kind of filling in what you were talking about. You know, I wear one in my gear. I don't use it for every deal. You know, I don't use it every single time when we're doing searches and drags, but I have found that to be probably the most beneficial way of doing it next to, you know, the inverted shirt and a couple of the other methods that came out of the fire service. It didn't come out of just a page on page 75. So Ryan, can you still hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just breaking up like crazy. Google apparently sucks.
Well, you're in Kansas City, Missouri, so
That's true.
So, but no, and one of the questions somebody had brought up, and I want to ask this to the group. James Noah said it helps at the times locally by having evaluators for the state practicals be versed in the street tactics. And I want to talk about that real quick because that's an issue that I've run into in the past, that we've had people who are evaluators who have been out of the job for 15, 20 years. They've been retired forever, and they're there evaluating. So what are they going off of? They're going off the check sheet. And when they see that check sheet, you know, if it says hold ankles and they don't hold the ankles, boom, they failed. Well, you got to put that into context, right? You have to have the understanding that, yeah, they didn't hold ankles, but they were within voice communication. They were next to each other. And I've heard so many people say over the years, well, I mean, clearly right here, it says that they have to hold ankles. Right. In what world does that make sense, though? Right. So it doesn't. And so have we taken time to change that or go to the state or whoever is doing your curriculum? Have we gone and said, hey, listen, this doesn't make any sense. It might have worked 20 years ago, but it doesn't work now. We need to get this fixed. And a lot of times when I ask that question, the answer is no. They have never, gone to.
Did it work? I mean, did it work 20 years ago? Like, I
mean, who the hell knows, man? At some point it might. And okay, to answer your question, Justin, and not to cut you off, but just, God, man, you guys are getting me all riled up. So, so here's the deal. So in the back in the day, right, the reason why people were holding ankles and the reason why they stressed it so much is because not every single freaking person had a radio. Yeah. We're in 2021. Everybody has a damn radio now. Okay. I understand the whole being in communication, but communication to me is if I'm in the room next door and I can holler down to you and I can call for help on a radio, I'm still in voice communication, right? So back 20 years ago, it probably did work because that's the only way that they had to make sure that the people that were searching were going to be in communication. Now we have a lot of other options. It's 2021. Get over it.
John says, no, it didn't work 20 years ago.
Yeah, there it is.
So here's what
thanks, John.
Here's what I want to say about that. All right. And I say this all the time. Firemen, I swear to God, are afraid of the dark. I don't know why, but gosh, it's like, if I can't hear you or if I can't touch you, like we got a problem. You really want to know what the safest way to search is. It's to stay oriented, not to your partner or any of that stuff, but to the building layout, period. Okay. When you put your hand on a wall and you follow that wall, are you staying oriented? Maybe, maybe not, but you're really only searching a percentage of what you're able to do by coming off of that wall. Right. So regardless, you're going to still miss somebody because you're not covering the whole room. Bottom line is when you go into a room and you feel a bed, pretty safe to assume that, hey, there's a bed here. There's a dresser. Oh, I'm probably in a damn bedroom. Right. Or if I go in here and it's small and I run into a toilet, oh, I'm in a bathroom, right? This is a couch. Like there's all of these things. If you use your hands and you feel and you stay aware of your surroundings, you should have a basic idea of where you are within that structure. Okay. A bedroom is 10 by 10, 10 by 12, some are a little larger. It's a box. If you get lost in a box, you probably shouldn't be doing this job. Hell, you probably shouldn't even be driving a car. You know what I'm saying? Like it's very, very simple. And we tend to make it more complicated by scaring the shit out of people telling them you will die if you let go of your partner. You will die if you split search and your partner's over there and you're over here because you can't see them or whatever. And because of that fear, it just embraces that bad behavior over and over and over again. And I'm going to tell you right now, if I'm ever doing a search and someone grabs my leg, they're getting a boot to the face. Like, step off of me. You could come off that wall and know exactly where you're at by going, oh, I'm like 2 or 3 feet off. Boom. Yep. I still got a wall. You know what I mean? Right. So this idea of like this Congo line of searchers moving through a space, it's just not practical. It doesn't work, and holding a tool in your hand, taking up space from a searching hand and swinging that shit doesn't work either. Tools are dumb. They have no feeling, right? Your hands are the best thing you have when it comes to search. Plain and simple. So start using them as an extension of you and be aware of what it is that you're doing and where you're operating.
There's different ways to carry a tool than just in your hand.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's the other thing too, and we kind of hit on it, is Dave, you talked about training in 2021 versus training in 1970. Going back to how we're teaching searches, why are we not letting people search with a thermal imager when we're trying to teach them? And the excuse is always, well, the technology is going to fail. We'll cross that road when it gets there. But for the most part, I'm going to be doing that with a tick. And the reason the technology is going to fail is if you're not doing your job and doing your pre-checks and doing your checks in the morning and didn't realize that your thermal imager has a low battery. So those arguments that, hey, technology is always going to fail can be overcame with a little bit of preparation and a whole lot of giving a shit about your job.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and okay, so to that point, right, and I want to say this. So Ryan just commented. He said, to be fair, I believe firemen are afraid of the dark because we train them that way. It's absolutely right. We have taught people to be scared of the dark. We have taught them that they're going to die at every turn. And, when you talk about technology and you just hit on it, when I got into the fire service, ticks were a hot commodity, right? Like there was one on a battalion chief's car because it was mounted to a helmet and it had like a 25-pound belt that went with it, right? So they were so expensive, it sat on a rig, right? But now we have access to ticks and the batteries. I mean, I remember the first couple of thermal imagers that I used, they had maybe like a 20-minute battery life if you were lucky. I mean, maybe, right? Now we have ticks that are 7, 8, 10-hour battery life. So this whole thought of like, oh, well, you can't use the tick because it's going to go dead, or what happens if the thermal imager stops working or whatever. Show me that. Show me where all these things have happened. I understand that they happened a while back, but now today our technology has gotten better, but our times haven't changed as far as how we're teaching firefighters. When was the last time we trained on radio communications? Back in the day, VHF radios, and some people are still on VHF radios. I understand that. But back in the day, radios were real finicky, right? They've gotten better. The technology has gotten better. So why aren't we teaching people, hey, here's the issues that you can have with radios. Here's how to overcome them. We're so worried about teaching how to hold ankles, but we're not teaching how to use a radio to communicate that you have a victim and what their status is and if they're hurt or if they need medical attention out to the incident command. That never gets talked about.
But so kind of what back to what Ryan Selleck just commented a minute ago. Like we've kind of effed up the SCBA confidence thing by basically, guys putting these things together, just brutalizing, the guys that they work with, trying to kill them in these scenarios. When we're doing SCBA confidence and we put people through these mazes and we do what we do with SCBA confidence, we have to explain to them, hey, this is a confidence course. We're putting you through this to get you to be more comfortable being able to function inside of your gear. Because our ability to search and work inside that environment, it's predicated on our ability to survive inside this gear. We've got to do a better job at teaching that so we're not terrifying these guys so they're not scared to death. Put them through these things so they have the confidence to know, hey, if something gets sideways while I'm doing this search ahead of a hose line or I'm in here getting after it, that they have the confidence to know, hey, I can un-F myself and I'm not going to die. Ryan, you're right about that. We guys have messed that up big time in the past.
So I want to touch on, this comment right here. He's right. Insulators do us no good with a thermal imager. So where we fail when we're teaching people thermal imaging is we don't teach them the limitations of that tool, right? we put a dummy in the middle of the room or whatever. We don't teach contrast, right? Like, hey, we're doing this in theatrical smoke, so your environment is opposite. So your image on the camera is going to be opposite. You know, if you're in a cool environment, your victim's going to stand out. If you're in a hotter environment, your victim is not going to stand out so much, right? There's that contrast there. Well, now throw human behavior into the element where people like to hide under blankets or anything like that, a hoarding environment where people can stuff themselves under a door, whatever they're using to protect themselves, that becomes an insulator of that camera. If all we ever do is make search successful with a tick, that you're always going to find a victim right there, then we failed them, because there are limitations, just like everything else we do. There are limitations to that tool, right? The problem with the thermal imager is that we think it's a fail-safe, and it's a great tool, and it searches a lot of space very quickly, and it has a high percentage of victims found. Where the thermal imager is really good for us, though, aside from search, is disorientation of firefighters. Okay, it has been proven that 100% of the time, a firefighter that's disoriented will find himself out of that structure with a thermal imager. Okay, so this isn't thermal imaging class or anything like that, but just understanding that, Logan, you're absolutely right. We need to be teaching these guys how to use it, but we need to be encompassing everything that they're going to encounter, right? What happens when it whites out, right? Are you wiping your face piece? Are you wiping your camera? There's all these things that go into using it other than just turning it on and pointing it, right? And that's, again, where we fall short on trainings is the people training, for the most part, they don't have all of that knowledge behind it. So these kids are coming in and they're thinking they're doing something great. Oh, yeah, I got this thermal imager. But do they truly understand what's on that screen? How does it relate to you right there in that environment, right?
And that's what I was getting at when I talked about training with the thermal imager, is not just giving it to them, putting it in the hand and saying, hey, here's a thermal imager, but exactly what we've all talked about is understanding the limitations. But if the only time that they're getting to use a thermal imager is in a real world scenario, they're not going to have exactly what we talked about. They're not going to be able to tell that, hey, my victim is going to be lighter than my environment when I've got this high heat.
Right.
It's just, we need to give them the tools early on, we're going to have during their career, and teach them how to use them the correct way, and not to use it just, a crutch, but use it as what we tool. It's a tool to help you do your job. It's not a crutch. It's not going to do your job for you. It's there to help you be more efficient at your job.
Absolutely.
And getting these guys some training in live fire. Like I'm a department, we don't get to do a lot of live fire training. I'm fortunate to get out and get to teach in some places where, I got to Corey Thompson's class. I've got to sit through in live fire and actually see what that looks like. But, a lot of guys in my department don't necessarily get that. And it's, learning how, hey, this thing for the first 45 seconds when he comes out of that air conditioned rig is going to suck inside of that house that's on fire, and understanding I'm wiping to make things work. And yeah, we got to get some guys trained the right way.
You was talking about the old $20,000 cameras with the 25-pound belt that you had to use to carry that yellow.
Am I talking?
Yeah. So what we did is we took in, when they came off the rig.
So I definitely agree. Right, we've got to train firefighters the right way. This whole idea of when we're doing search and rescue, 3 pallets in a corner, half bale of hay, like call it good. That's just not reality, right? We don't fight fires that way. In Recruit Academy or in your own training within your organization, you have to bring that element of real world to you. Yeah, I mean, that's it.
Are you talking about like a David Mellon in his underwear screaming at you?
Yes.
Well, I'm talking about that, and I'm talking about fire behavior. You gotta let that thing grow like a fire really would. Let them feel what heat is. Let them see what happens when you open a window and you get that lift. Like, you have to let them experience this. Often it's a mad dash to the fire, squirt water on it, and evolution's over. And it's like, man, there is so much more to this that you're missing. And then the training becomes useless because you're not going to apply that into any real world scenario. In fact, you're just going to confuse them, because when they get in there, they're going to go, what the hell is this? This isn't what I was taught to do or look at or any of that stuff. So anyway, I think I cut Shane off because I couldn't hear him. So go ahead, Shane.
Yes, all right. I hope you can hear me. No, what I was talking about was when we took the years ago when we only had that one yellow ISG, that was pretty much the industry standard for so many years. That was a $20,000 camera when we first got it in 2000 or 99. And when we took them off the trucks, we had one. And then right for about a year, we had two of them. And they laid there forever. And the batteries sucked in them, but it didn't matter. We took those, and then we started finding and going and talking to people and trying to find them and give us those cameras, and we still use them today. Because remember what it was when you went from the ISG to the Bullard or to the Scott camera at that time, and we're like, wow, this is so much better. So before we ever let anybody get their hands on what we use today, the technology we use, we let them get good at reading black and white and understanding even the pic that it presented then. You had to be very profound at understanding what you was looking for and it didn't have the processors today that they have. It didn't have the refresh rates. So we still use those today as that initial, here's your camera. And we use those the same way we do when we're talking about orientation in a box. Man, if we do it to them, if we take them, we'll take them out in the district in the areas that we respond in, and if they can't understand the outside of a house, how the hell are they going to understand the inside of it? And so they have to become very proficient at telling us everything about the house they can tell us, and understanding how to be able to look at it and dictate where bedrooms are at. What side is that brick fireplace coming out? Is it coming off on the back side of the peak, or is it coming off on the front side of the peak? Where is that orientation of the chimney to the front door? Giving them all these reference points of things to where they get in there and they get to a point to where they realize, I don't know where I'm at, but I feel, there's a chimney stoop. Well, what's that going to tell you? Where are you at? You're most likely you're in the living quarters of where most everybody gathers inside of a residential structure. And it's all those different techniques. And you was talking about earlier about picking up victims and being able to get them out of windows. I think that goes back to the technique of if you're taking them out of window, whether it's a window that you vented to get in for VES or VEIS, however you want to call it, if that's the window they're coming out, we have to be good at the technique that comes with that and clearing the damn window so we don't lay their damn gut open if they do get to live. So yeah. I think all of I think that's kind of been the big thing with us the last few months, especially after March, was sitting back and determining, yes, the classes that we're teaching, we're being aggressive, but a lot of these guys that come and spend 2 or 3 days with you for the first time or second time, and maybe that might be the first time they've got some aggressive training like that, and they see these search techniques and all of this different stuff they're asked to do in a period of 8 or 16 hours for a class. But what happens if that's really the only time they see that? How well do they really know and feel confident in going back and sharing that knowledge? Some are good about doing it, and some are confident to be able to do it. But that's what we really honed in on in the last few months, is the actual being very precise at your techniques, and whether it's search, whether it's taking and entering from the outside in through a window. It don't matter if it's an elevated window, if it's on the ground. I think a lot of people are still under the misconception that VES only takes place off of a ladder inside on the second story, and it's not true. And getting them to understand that it's a lot of people focus on, and a lot of it goes back to some of those academies and those basic trainings. They go back to what they were told, and it's that one image they have. And they don't realize it's okay to think outside of the box and go, what if? Like you mentioned earlier, what is your plan? Well, what is your plan? So let's dictate out a plan we force them to take in a comfortable situation, to be able to take and be okay with saying, hey, well, what if we try this? If you want to try it, guess what we're going to do? We're going to try it. We're going to find out. And a lot of times we know it's not going to work, but guess what? What do you do to a young man or a young lady when you tell them, no, that ain't going to work? No, let them see that their idea has consequences, good or bad. Let them see that, okay, because if you tell them, no, it's not going to work, and you go on to the next thing, guess what? They don't understand why it didn't work. And you have to take, and when you do that, what you do is you build courage and confidence in them. And if they feel comfortable and they start feeling to where they are comfortable, they get more comfortable and confident inside of anything else they want to do. But that goes back to that same question it was asked earlier, well, you only have so much time at the academy. No, you don't. You got all the time in the world with them as long as they come to work with you. That's our diligence. And if they come, you got to create an environment for they want to come and they want to be the best at search. They want to be the best at whatever it is we're doing. But they have to understand what the priority is. We're the fucking fire department. That's what people need to understand. People call us when shit's bad and they're looking for help. And so the thing is there's one priority first and foremost, and that's life safety, search and rescue. We'll put the house out. We'll take care of it as soon as we're done making sure the house is clear. Now, can we do that in joint efforts? Absolutely. But we have to take and train in that too, because you do not know. You can't be expected to know what to do if you've never been shown. And that's a lot of the problem that we're doing. We're setting our young fire service up for failure at times like that, because they get that EMT license or that firefighter 1 or firefighter 2 and we're throwing them right on the engine. Well, shit, they ain't got no experience. So we have to teach them, and we're failing them. That's not their fault.
Yeah.
All of that comes back to the first time that they should be in their full PPE with their heart racing 185, beats a minute, should not be the first time that they're making a push down a hallway at 3 a.m. That should be happening on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis their entire career. There's nothing that says you can't throw your jacket on, throw an SCBA on, pop a helmet, pop your face piece on, and go out and throw a sandbag around. Go climb stairs. Right. Do it daily. Add layers. Get more and more comfortable. You should know exactly how your body is going to react when your heart's running at 190 beats a minute. Hey, at 190 beats a minute, do I have the dexterity to grab this person and pull them out? What's my heart going to do when I'm here? Do I know what it feels like to be close to shutting down as far as, my body goes? Have I put myself to that limit? It needs to happen before I actually get to that limit on a working structure fire. Because then I'm part of the problem. I'm not part of the solution. I'm part of the problem if I don't understand, how I'm going to hold and react.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that you touched on, and I just want to bring this up too, because you brought it up, right? Like when we talk about search culture, search tactics, right? We talk about being aggressive. The last time I've done a search on an actual fire, right? It wasn't going in and, okay, hold on a second, there's the wall, let me go through. I mean, we were going into a house to do a search, and it was rapid, it was fast, you were taxing yourself. That is what we mean when we say aggressive search, right? Like, we're going in and we're being aggressive, just like we would if we had a nozzle in our hand. We're pushing our bodies, we're pushing our limits. So knowing and understanding, like, I know when I get to the point where I can't hold on to things or I'm having a hard time as I'm searching using my hands, I know that my heart's going above what I'm comfortable with. So it's my step to go, okay, hold on a second. I got to take a breath. I got to kind of slow myself down. And the only way you're going to learn that is through training, right? And I think we can all agree with that. One thing I did want to kind of go back to real quick, because Andy had brought it up. Andy Stars, which I know everybody keeps looking at this and thinking that it's Andy Starnes. It is not. It is Andy Stars, somebody completely different. But he said that, he's talking about a tick. He said that we should use it as a tool. And I want to touch on this because I think people misunderstood what I said. And since I'm here and I got the mic, I can say whatever I want. So I want to clarify this. I am not talking about going in and holding the tick like this in front of your face the entire effing time. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when we watch new firefighters or even firefighters that have been around for a while and they're doing a 6-sided search and they go like this and then they drop the tick. Well, what did you actually get in that view? What did you actually see when you were searching? And when I ask them that question, when I'm like, hey, what the hell was that? They're like, well, I'm searching all the sides. I'm like, right, but it was like literally a half a second to a second. And they're like, well, yeah, but I got to hurry up because the battery's going to go dead. Right. No. That was 10 years ago, right? Like, you have time. You have time to sit there and do a quick search and look in your tick and make sure that you know the layout and see that bed. And one of the biggest things that we talk about in our class, and I know Sean and I have talked about this as well, you mentioned it earlier, looking at a warm victim in a concrete floor in a bay, they're going to be the coolest thing in the room. So they're going to be lighter color. If you see a real victim in a house fire, the chances are is that they're going to be darker than the environment because they are the coolest thing. So take that back. They would be the warmest thing in the bay. They're going to be the coolest thing in the room. So when we showed pictures of inverted colors, a lot of times people didn't recognize the darker colored silhouette of a human body as a human body. They didn't see it that way because our brains aren't programmed like that. So when I take that tick and I just sweep that room like this and then drop the tick, and it's like, okay, well, there's no fire and I saw a chair. Right, but you just missed the 2 bodies that are laying over in the corner. So now you are going to search with your hands because you should, and that's the way we should search. But instead of seeing that and recognizing it and going straight to it and shaving off 30 seconds on your search, now you're going to go and do all this other stuff when you didn't recognize, because you were being so quick with the thermal imaging camera, that somebody was right there. And we've seen it time and time again in training, right? I don't have the data to quantify it. I can't sit there and go, well, go look at these statistics. But I can tell you that I have missed dogs. I've missed other animals, other things that I should have recognized in a tick because I was sweeping too fast. And the reason why people do that is because they're afraid that if they're so dedicated to that tick, that by the time they get done using it, the battery's dead and now they can't find their way out. And it just doesn't hold up. It doesn't work like that.
No, absolutely, man. And I just want to throw something on there. Like, we've said the word aggressive a lot, and I'm all for it. And I know most of us are. And here's the problem with that word. It gets attached to things as bad, right? Oh, we can't do that. It's too aggressive. But if you change people's minds and you say, listen, everything we do is supposed to be deliberate, right? And you start that approach on things, you'd be surprised what kind of buy-in you get when you're starting to teach these things. Like, hey, I'm going to show you how to move a victim deliberately instead of aggressively. Or, hey, we're going to search with a purpose, right? It's going to be deliberate in nature. Let's go. So I have found, for whatever reason, that word aggressiveness turns a lot of people off onto what we're trying to do. And, that's sad. But the other side of it is, and I know Logan wanted to touch on this too, is we're talking about training. Okay. Somebody mentioned in the comments that we got to stop training in Conex boxes. Okay. Well, you got to use what you have. I understand that. But yes, if you're going to train in a Conex box because you can't have an acquired structure for whatever reason, then you need to furnish those areas as if they were real. Couches, tables, beds, put stuff that you're going to find in a house. We do way too much search training in open areas, right? And that does a tremendous disservice, especially to people who have never done this before, right? So the ideal training environment, yes, would be a acquired structure or a house or something like that has a great layout. But take the time to build it. If you don't have it, you do have a Conex box, build it. I know 1403 kind of limits a lot of stuff we do, but we're not talking about live fire all the time. I want you to know how to search and be really, really proficient at that before I even bring you to a live fire scenario. So we have the ability to do that. We're just choosing not to. And I think that's where we're also failing in some areas.
No, I agree. Shane, you just sent me that picture. I'm going to try and grab it real quick. I want you to talk about it. So hold on one second. Just give me 1 second.
Is this a picture of Nate's grab? I couldn't see
No.
what the picture was.
No, this
Okay.
this is after that.
All right, hold on a second. Let me get that pulled up. Oh, come on. Where'd it go? All right, so why don't you start talking about it and I'll pull it up.
So the picture is that's a structure fire we ran back in the beginning of May 3rd, I believe it was this year. Again, we're two-man engines with short staffed that day as well. Others working over, hanging over. We provide fire protection also for a little community just right outside the city limits of us. And we were at our other station, which put us another 5 minutes away. But that picture right there, if people need to look, that's a great picture. We use it now as a training tool because that was what we pulled up on. That was exactly what we pulled up on. From the time we went en route to the time we went on scene till we called primary complete was 19 minutes. So people say you can't do that with 2 or 4 people. I'm here to tell you, yes, you can. And the reason we can is because we train that way, that hard to do that all the time. A lot of people, when we use that, a lot of people hate the word profile. And when you talk about profiling the interior of a search is one thing, but when you profile a actual structure, when you take a brand new guy around a house just like that that's not on fire, and that is a 1-2 split level on a garage slab basement. But if you look at that, there's a lot to tell you at that point right there, from the color of smoke to exactly what's going on. Looks like just a base attic fire. What it did is that split allowed it to get over on top of the living quarters and the living room and the kitchen, and there was three young boys in that house. Thank God, the mother was leaving to go to work. Dog, she actually was backing out of the driveway, looked up and seen her dog, and stopped to go put the dog back up. And when she opened the front door, she was met with that black smoke. So she runs straight back upstairs, gets all 3 of her sons. But as we pull up, we're being told everybody's out of the house. The whole front of the house is on fire. And so we took in 1 man on the nozzle, cleared the way, 2 search and split search, and 1 continuing to walk around while it was going on, because we trained so efficiently to the best of our ability to be able to understand and know what's going on. And we talked about communication earlier. Well, if you think you can't search off a hose line, you're terribly mistaken. That right there is a perfect example why 1 man on the nozzle, 2 searching. I'm going to tell you something. If something goes bad, I don't need somebody hollering at me the whole time. You good? You good? When I can't hear him because I stop what I'm doing. And then I go back and I go, what? And then he's spraying water. Well, he's got 2 means of communication in his hands that he never has to say anything to me. That's the hose line. If he's flowing water, either things are going to get worse or they're going to get better. And he's got a pass device on his air pack. If his pass device goes off, he's got 30 seconds. We know something's happened. And then we have to immediately go to him. But he's got a nozzle in his hand and an air pack on his shoulders. I don't need him hollering at me. I don't need somebody hollering at me unless they need help or they're calling for a victim. And we searched that house top and bottom. From the time we got there till the time we called under control or the primary was complete was 19 minutes. And that right there just proves what you can do. People say minimal staff and they use that as an excuse. I know it sucks. Believe me, it sucks big time. But you have to take and prepare yourself with what you got. And the theory behind this is right here. How much can you really tell about that? We beat ourselves up all afternoon trying to figure out what we could do better. Well, if we would have had just 1 more person, we could have taken and thrown a ladder on that bedroom window on the BC corner. We could have thrown a ladder and got up there and bent for VES. Luckily, there was nobody in there, and we were able to get in and search it and clear it. But at the same time, put that down in front of your new guys and ask them. And if they're not going to know the answer right out of the gate. So you teach them and you show them. We've been fortunate enough, and I know it's some people hear this and take it the wrong way, but we have been fortunate enough to go to jobs and houses and structure fires like this time after time after time. And that is the experience we have to take as senior guys. We have to take that too, just like with as the new guys or the young guys or girls do, because we have to learn from it every time, and we have to make sure we understand what they've seen. And they got to feel confident in being able to tell us they didn't understand or they didn't know because we should be able to learn and we should be able to tell them as well. And it goes back to everything we talked about. It goes to searching, it goes to our techniques, doesn't matter what it is, but what can be accomplished if you train aggressively. And Sean's right. The word aggressive kind of does get thrown around a lot of times. And people, it sounds bad, but is it really bad? It's kind of like manipulation. A lot of people say manipulation. Well, they immediately think what? That's a terrible word until you actually put the manipulation for a positive outcome. That positive outcome has to be about somebody else to better them. When you say it that way, manipulation doesn't sound so bad. Neither does aggressiveness. So it's all in how we dictate in the words we say. But if people are taking the words we're saying the wrong way, then we need to sit down and spend the time with them and make sure they understand why we are aggressive, why we have the aggressive mindset, why we use that word, just like we use manipulation and try to take in and helping others to become. A lot of times you have to manipulate others to get them to see what they're actually capable of doing. And the only way the only way that happens is they got to know they can trust you and they don't want to disappoint you. And the only way they're going to get better is if they trust you and they're not afraid to make mistakes, because all that does is take and fertilize success.
Well, and Shane, you've manipulated me mentally multiple times, right? Like you've been having conversations, and I'm sitting there talking to you, and I know that sounded really inappropriate for a second, but yeah, as I'm sitting there, and you and I are having a discussion, I'm like, man, what the hell is he talking about? And then by the time we're done with the conversation, I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm like, wait, how did that just happen? Right? So, but it was a good thing, right? And I think that's important to understand, is that you can manipulate people positively, but just as importantly, you can manipulate people in a very negative way. And I want to bring up one of the questions somebody asked, but before I do that, Paul Viren said, preparing yourself mentally for the grab, visualizing the grab before it happens so it doesn't catch you off guard when you do find a victim. And I want to stress to everybody, and I'm going to geek out here for a second, when you visualize things, and this is on a psychological level, right? When you visualize something, the same neurotransmitters and the same neuroreceptors and the same chemicals in your brain that would be utilized if it was actually happening are utilized. So if you envision in your head how you're going to go make a grab on the fifth floor of a apartment building, and you know the layout of that building because you've been in it 100 times for a medical call, if you do that over and over again in your head 100 times, when that fire actually happens in that area, your brain already knows what to do because you're already going through that recognition prime decision making. And I don't mean to geek out, and I know a lot of people are like, oh my God. But it's true, right? And if you don't believe me, think about and I just talked about this when I was teaching at FDIC. Think about the last time that you had the hot for somebody, right? And you thought about them and you thought about some stuff. What happens, right? Shit starts to happen. And it's not because you're thinking about it. It's because the neurotransmitters are doing the same exact thing as if they were actually there. Right.
Happened to me like an hour and a half ago. As soon as I got on here, stuff started happening.
I get it, right? But from a psychological standpoint, I mean, we can sit there, and I've gone through 100 different scenarios, thousands and thousands and thousands of times. I speak pretty openly about one of the grabs that we made with Ann Jarrett, who was 104 years old. I went through that same exact scenario in a small, like 800, 900 square foot bungalow. I did that scenario 1,000 times in my head. So when we got into that scenario, it was like a normal Tuesday, right? And I didn't realize it at the time. It wasn't something that I realized that oh, shit, I've already done this 5,000 times. Afterwards, I'm like, man, why did I not have to think about this? Why did I not have to think about that? Oh, it's because I've already gone through it in my head 100 times. And so I already had those flashcards to pull from the Rolodex. But one thing that somebody had asked was John Vincent Ryan Buchanan. So I don't know if it's John Buchanan or Vincent Ryan. But he said, anyone else do post-fire walkthroughs days after with the crews?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we'll hot wash like immediately after our fire, and it'll be kind of just a super brief. Hey, what'd you guys do and see? What'd you guys do and see? What'd you guys do and see? And then we'll get back together, talk about it again, and then we'll take our crew and we'll go back to that scene and kind of dive deeper in. But yeah, that's a great tool.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, Ryan's back. I guess he called, I don't know, who'd you call, Google, and tell him to speed it up?
Yeah, they showed up over here and we got it all planned out. Everything's good. They're running new wires now. So I don't know.
Chris Morrow said we have to expect victims, and that's from Gary Lane, right? Expect fire, expect victims. I love that.
Yeah, every time.
Well, we say that all the time. We play that pay that a lot of lip service also, but it is legitimately. I expect to go to a dozen fires today, and I expect every fire that I go to be, full of people that need me to get them out. Like we say that, but you really actually have to do it. You can't just say it. Make that part of like what your daily drive in and your whatever you've got to do to get yourself prepped for that day. That needs to be part of your day.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree with you 100%. This kind of that's what Duffy said earlier with what's your plan, man. That goes back to, especially as a company officer, man. You can you can inherit a lot of decision making in the guys that you're taking and responsible for every shift. You can take and inherit them a lot of decision making process long before they get to work. And it's just simply doing exactly what you talked about, man. It doesn't happen right at 8 o'clock when you swap shift or when you punch in. No, man, it happens way before then. Have conversations with them. If they don't seem right, man, have a conversation. Check on them when they leave. Check on them before they get back there. And you have to put that in there. You have to give them that opportunity to take and want to think like that. Because if we don't show them that we're doing that, if we're thinking that same way, guess what? They're never going to do it.
Agreed.
I would agree with that. Like, you have to have that mindset, and you have to talk to your crew, and you got to be. That's what the guys have got to be dialed in on. You got to work on that every day. There's times when we want to go like lounge around and do everything else. But what I tell my guys, and what Chad always told us too, give me an hour. Like, give me an hour of the day. We're there for 24 hours. You can give me 1 hour. And so we would go, it could be a terrible day. Like, we're just all tired, came back from the weekend or whatever. And by the end of that, it would be like 3 or 4 hours because everybody's involved in it. And we get into training, and that's how we came up with like the 4-to-1 system. And some of the things that I wanted to talk to, besides Google sucks and Kansas City sucks, but so we're so ingrained with like thinking and the way we train too, and the way you like our guys, we always go back to our academy class. We would teach about like they would use their ICMs for like a radio, because we don't have enough radios in Kansas City, I guess, to give the new kids. So they would use that stuff. So you train the way, or you fight the way you train, I guess is how you say that. And one thing that we've always thought of, or what we've always gotten used to, was we're used to hearing the pass devices going off. And not to bring up, Rescue 9 was called in to backtrack it. Rescue 9 was called in down to Hilliard, Missouri for a guy, which, if you guys aren't familiar with the area, is a very long ways from Kansas City. We were called in for McCormick, who had fallen through a floor. And I vividly remember walking through the basement. We were the first ones to him. It was me, Chad, Paul Barron is who it was. And we're running our line. We're running down through the basement to try to go find this guy. And I remember halfway through the basement hearing a pass device, and it clicks in my head. That's him. We're so used to hearing pass devices going off. We call them load alerts, because it's the guys who are standing around not working. But we're so used to hearing stuff that it's normal sounds. And so we're walking through this thing, and we know we're looking for this guy, and we know what we're coming across. And I remember stopping and thinking, he is right there. It was just, it finally clicked. And I was talking to Paul earlier tonight, and so you just have to get that mindset. We were in that mindset of, we're going to find a victim. That's who we're going. And that's where I worked at before I came on Kansas City. So this is family to me, and it hurt a little bit, to go over there and go, that's where he's at. And so you have to think of that, I guess. I hate to go on that tangent, and just kind of think of that. But when you go play with all that stuff, we do large area search team stuff. That was from John Tibetan back in '98. And we teach about the pass devices and try to listen to that and try to use your search, your thermal imaging camera, which somebody was talking about that earlier, and I don't mean to step on toes or anything like that. In my little comment down there, that you can use your thermal imaging to kind of look at a room and get your landscape. But other than that, you still have to be hands-on, because those kids will, hide underneath stuff, get into a closet because they're scared. And then what are those, your closet poles are held together with plastic. I've broken with, when I was trimming houses, I would run a screw through them and break them all the time. So all it takes is just a little bit of heat to break those things, drop a whole bunch of clothes right on a kid, you'd never see him. So you got to get in there, pick that stuff up, and try to get him or her out of that little hole. So you can use that thermal, but you want to get a picture of the room just to kind of get an idea real fast, go in there and go do a search, picking stuff up, throwing it in the air, I mean, you have to actually get hands-on. So me, like filling in everything that I've missed in the last hour and hour and 40 minutes.
Hour and 40 minutes. Which,
so,
by the way, just so everybody knows, we're going to go about another 20 minutes ish, and then we're going to call it a night because I know we've kept all the people that have been watching. They're still watching, but I know it's getting late for some people, so we're going to go about 20 minutes.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, my little tantrum thing.
No, you're good, man.
Wow, man, it's good.
That's it. That's what we've come up with over the years. And like I was saying, that drag strap thing, I watched it firsthand. This is like 2 or 3 weeks after me and Chad kind of like really messed with it a lot. And it sure enough, there was a search in a house. A company gave an all clear. You can't search on your feet. You got to get hands on. They give an all clear. They give an all clear again. And then they ran up there, and Chad and Paul actually found him. And I remember Paul was trying to grab like the feet, and Chad was like shoving him away. Like, I don't even need to. Like, he had him hands on, and it was all locked in, and he walked right out of that house. And it was so effortless. It was pretty cool to see something that we kind of messed with, and it actually worked. Like we've trained with it a million times. Don't get me wrong, but to actually see it work in an environment that we're working in, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, so. and I want to touch on that just for a second because I spoke. You guys, I mean, obviously it's your deal, right? Like you guys, and whenever I talk about it,
it's everybody's deal.
Yeah. Well,
deal.
No, I know, but you guys came up with it, and I think credit is due. I mean, you guys kind of planned it out and figured it out and kind of learned the good way to do it and the not so great way, or what works and what doesn't work, right? Because there's been a couple different iterations. There's been the webbing, there's been the DRD, there's been a bunch of different trial and error and R&D that you guys have done. But one of the coolest things that I saw come out of that was that people started putting it in their gear. And the backside of that was that I started getting these messages because I posted it after Chad did our show. We did a podcast on it, and I showed a bunch of pictures. And I had people reaching out to me, and they're like, man, I put that webbing in, and my chief said I can't do it because it voids the warranty on the gear. And I sat there for a second. I'm like, wait a minute. So of all the shit that you're going to put in your pockets and all the shit that you're going to have hanging off your gear, you taking a DRD that's already supposed to be in your gear to begin with and running it across your shoulder and putting it in between, I can't believe that would void the warranty. So I reached out to a couple different manufacturers, and straight from the manufacturers, as far as I know, now somebody's going to watch this and be like, well, contraire. But no, I mean, none of the manufacturers were like, yeah, that doesn't really matter for anything. I mean, it's not going to do anything adversely to the gear. It's not going to, now if it rips out or something and you try to come back and say, hey, I had a DRD on my sleeve and it tore, they're probably not going to look real great on that. But the whole gear integrity thing doesn't really hold up, right?
Yeah.
And so, I think it's great. The other thing, and Logan was on, and I think he had to get off for a second. Actually, he's on. I'm going to bring him back in for a second. One of the things that we talk about as well is the inverted shirt. So if you have someone who is burned and you can't get a grip on their arms or legs, you can't do the clamp style if you don't have a strap in your arm. You can actually take your gloved hand, run it down the back of their shirt, grab their shirt, pull it back through, and invert it. So it's essentially a hasty harness made out of their own shirt. And at the back of the head, it actually gives their head a place to rest on. So as you're dragging them across the floor, they're not hitting the threshold or, other things. But when Logan started showing that and teaching it, it was like the light bulb just clicked on. And it was like, where'd you guys come up with this? And it's like, dude, somebody thought of it somewhere, right? And we're not the only ones. But that changed how we were kind of showing search. And it was something that they hadn't ever seen before. So, and I want to get to this question. When we look at tactics, how much of the tactics in the last 5 years do you feel like were brought forward by us, by the people that are actually out there doing the job, figuring out what works, versus what we're being taught through initial education? Because I feel like there's a huge disparity, and I know we keep going back to this, but as far as search tactics go, how much of those things do you feel like need to be in publishings? How many of those things do you feel need to be taught in the initial education, not just by the senior guys once you get out onto a rig?
Everything that Brian Brush has brought with the rescue survey, that needs to be out there. How learning, we should know how to prioritize a search. We know that higher probability of finding a victim in bedrooms, both day and night, not just doing the arbitrary right and left hand search. Absolutely, that stuff needs to be in the curriculum. I don't. Why would it not?
I agree.
Yeah, to answer your question,
I agree. That goes back to the comment earlier about an hour ago was, so what are we waiting on? Why are we not writing our own? Why are we not writing our own book on this stuff? So we only got limited time. So, if we don't start doing it now, can't sit around and wait on somebody to do it for us. Because if you're waiting on them to give you the approval to do it, you're never going to get it.
Well, on top of that, we're not a publishing company,
Yeah.
So we're not making money on those, not selling those books. Really, it's guys hitting the ground and running. Most of those guys who are writing those books went to school to write books. They're not actually firemen.
Yeah. Right.
That's my take on it. Anyways, we have a saying in Kansas City, at least with Rescue 9 and a few other guys, it's get better soon. I know you're not sick or anything. I just hope you get better soon. Just go try.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's stickers coming out with that, by the way. Me and a couple guys decided to go make some stickers. But Chad was talking about that 50, 30, 20 rule too. There's 20% that are 100% go-getters, and then there's that 30 that are just a bunch of turds. And you're not going to fix those guys. That 50, on the other hand, you can convince them to go train. And so that's what we got to do. We got to really focus on that 50 and get them out there every day. They're willing to go train. It just takes some guidance and takes some leadership. And it just takes that next step. And we were talking just the other day that I think there's that gap a little bit between that last generation, the old guys that we remember. They were training all the time and came up with all the tactics and stuff. We got laxed. I'll be the first to admit I got laxed because I learned from those guys. And these new kids coming on, you're just like, man, you guys suck. How come you can't pick this up? Well, it was on me the entire time to go pass it along. And so now we got to go do the same thing. And it was searching, ventilation. It doesn't matter. I mean, we got to go do that. And that's our job.
Yeah, I think the fire ground is the great equalizer here. We could sit in the apparatus bay. We could sit in a Conex building, and do all these things that in theory should make sense. But realistically, the only way you're going to know what works and what doesn't is when you have the opportunity to apply it in the real world. And I think there's I don't want to say gimmicks, but with tactics and things like that, there's a lot of theories like, oh, this should work. Look how cool this is. But like we were saying earlier, when your heart rate's up and you lose fine motor skills and the only thing you can do is really react, I think the skills and the tactics that are being shown today have come from real world situations like that. And that's why they work, right? They're street proven. And that's really what we need to be teaching is street proven stuff so that there are no misunderstandings of, well, I tied this hasty harness on this firefighter or this victim 20 times in the apparatus bay with no stress other than maybe possibly being blacked out to whatever extent we can. You throw heat in there, you throw the fact that this is pure dead weight, you're probably with webbing going to get a girth hitch at best, right? So understanding hey, I failed at X, Y, and Z, and because I failed, this is what we came up with, and I was able to prove this and that it works on several civilians. That's really the golden ticket there. And, we're just – I don't know why it's not being put in the books by the people that are out there doing it, but I feel that it really needs to be, because even if all of us got together and made our own manual, that's only going to circulate to people that are like us, right? People who feel the same way that we do, and maybe some others. We got to be showing this stuff early on, right from right from out of the gate if we expect anybody to be successful with these new tactics that are out there.
Yeah. And I just want to point out real quick, for the people, and we've talked a lot about publications and universities and programs, and some of them are state run, some of them are educational institutions. But I want to point out that, the people that are involved in writing these books, they're not doing this negatively, right? They're not doing this because they want to put out stuff that's backwards. And I love going back and talking about like the Halligan bar that was backwards for 3 or 4 revisions until it finally got changed, right? But what the reason why that got changed is because it blew up on social media and people called them out, right? And so in a positive way, and I want people to understand this, I mean this in a completely 100% genuine way. Each one of those books for each chapter and each section has the people that helped write that portion. So if you don't agree with something, or if you'd like to see something different, reach out to them. Reach out to those people. It's not, this isn't something that has to be like, oh, we're just going to get the book and then we're not going to teach it, right? We can make the book what we want it, but it's going to take all of us working together to make it that way. And so I think a lot of times, because we're firefighters, and I mean, if you don't agree with me, I think you're freaking fooling yourself. I think there is a portion of us that are like, we want to blame them because of what we're doing. So quit blaming them and let's work on it together, and let's actually come up with something that's going to be beneficial for everybody. If we were able to get rid of the backwards Halligan, we can get rid of the holding ankles. I guarantee you we can.
So who was it? Noe Lopez, cat out of California, circled something. I think it was in a Jones and Bartlett book. And I wish I could remember exactly what it was, but this thing blew up on social media to the point that Jones and Bartlett actually reached out to, I think Justin McWilliams kind of blew it up for him and reached out to him. And they're working on changing that in future revisions. So sometimes just getting on Facebook and talking crap, sometimes that works.
All right, so we have about 8 minutes left. 8 minutes. Oh, poor Logan. Poor Logan.
Oh, man.
Dave, I love your private comment there. That's hilarious.
Oh, the private comment was so good.
Yeah. Let's just keep that private. All right.
Oh, man. We don't share that?
I agree.
Let's just put it this way. I spent a tremendous amount of time and effort trying to put this shit together in this software, and I am not impressed. So we're definitely going to be looking for something different. We'll find something that works, I promise you. But no, we have about 8 minutes left. I want to ask you guys this question. What is the single most important topic or aspect of aggressive search that you feel is just misunderstood, right? Like, we've been talking about a lot of different stuff tonight, and it's amazing stuff, and all the comments have been amazing. But what is the single most misunderstood aspect of aggressive search that you feel needs to be addressed? So let's start with Shane. We're going to work our way across. So Shane, Ryan, Justin, and then Sean.
For me, it's the simple fact that long before it becomes a search, it's people don't understand the sincerity of what it means to care about each other enough to take and want to do it. And that happens long before the search. I think that to be aggressive in search, and you got to have dedication and sincerity and a lot of heartfelt, like-minded people. But how are you going to get somebody to take and want to dive off in something that's, has a high chance of not being successful, but is very successful if you invest in it? But I think it starts long before the search. I think it really goes back to the fact that we have to really get to know each other, care about each other. And I've said it many a times, it's okay to care about each other and okay to love each other, and everybody's different. And man, you got to be, I know that sounds kind of corny at times, but I'm just telling you, before you can get anybody to take and want to go be good at something they're scared to death of, they got to know that you really care. They care about you, that you care about them, and the only way that they're not going to want to disappoint you is that they respect you and they're not going to let you down, because they wouldn't feel that way if they didn't know you cared about them. So, and that's that manipulation thing, man. Is you get so much out of people when you realize somebody is passionate about something, and that everybody has that opportunity to be as passionate. So, to me, that's where it starts, and it's amazing to see the outcome from it, because you take guys doing this now, and it's built off relationships, and if we trust each other, then we're going to go. It's okay to be like each other, and people need to realize that. It's okay to say that. I want to be like you guys, because you guys are good at this shit, real good, and I want to be, I want to be able to take, and I want to be as good as you guys are at it. So that takes an investment from me.
Yeah, I agree. Ryan, what do you think?
To me, it comes down to kind of like what he was saying, man. It's got to be a mindset. You have to go into that house with the intent to find somebody, and everybody's got to be on the same page. You got to drill on it. You got to work on it. Just make it 100%. I mean, give everything you got. In the end of the day, I talked about it very early on. We're public servants. We are servants of the community that we work in. Our neighbors, my neighbor next door is expecting me to come get them out. And so if you can live with yourself that, you're just going to half-ass it, then this ain't for you. Quick Trip's iron down the street, we're here for a reason. So
they might pay more, man.
Yeah, they probably do, to be honest. Maybe not if you're a medic in Kansas City, because we up that pay. But anyway.
Yeah, you guys smoked them, man.
Yeah, we kind of screwed everybody in the area. But with that same idea, though, like you're in it, like you're here to be a fireman, and I saw it somewhere else that, there's no recruiting offices for KCFD. I mean, you came here willingly, and you came here. I'm not asking you to give your life. What I'm asking you is to give 110%, and go in there and go search, and go in there and go do your job. That's all it is. Just do your job, and do your job to the best of your abilities, that you can come home at night and tell your family that you did a good job that day. Sometimes it doesn't work out for you, but at least you give it a shot, and you did everything you possibly can, and you can go to sleep that night.
So just out of curiosity, who's Christian Lockridge, Ryan?
The guy who built, where is it? That sign right there that we stole from Wichita Hot? Or not Wichita Hot, sorry, Into the Job. We took that
Into the Job. So you're going to get us shut down because you're using the wrong names for wrong conferences. But so
I don't really care.
So Ryan said, or Christian said, Ryan, that sign sucks, which I thought was hilarious. And then I had to do a double take because he said it should say into your mom. So I just want since he's the guy that made the sign, I'm going to go ahead and say that he can say that.
I can. Here I do have it. So there's a joke with Chad and his brother started the mom jokes, just like we did in high school, right? And so anyway, so it was always joking about mom. So we actually made a sticker, and it has Chad's mom's name on it, Caroline Preston. And so it's a constant joke. And so that's where we turned it with Isaac, and we said it needs to be into your mom. And so it went dark pretty quick, but whatever.
Dude, it's the fire service. It always does, man.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
So, all right. So Justin, what is the single most misunderstood topic when you talk about aggressive search that you think needs to be addressed?
Ryan's mom. No. Man. Get it. We talked about the mindset and the why. This isn't some ancillary thing that we do. It's the reason that we're here. That is the basis for our existence, is to save people's lives. That's what we're here to do. I remember who I said it to, but water always wins, but I've never seen anybody, wash a victim out of the front door with a nozzle. I mean, until it's a manual labor job. You have to be prepared for it. Those people are not coming out until you physically put their hands on them and drag them out of the front door. That's what we're preparing to do, and understanding that the why it's important to be aggressive. Don't be afraid of the word aggressive. Call it assertive. Call it whatever you want to call it. But the time that they have inside, that doesn't belong to us. That's their time. So masking up quickly, turning out quickly, getting in, getting searches done, having some sort of plan for getting them out, and just expressing the importance of that to the new guys coming on, that they buy into this mission that, I work for the department that has the big mud flap on the back of the fire truck that says, "We will come for you." And that we're going to stand by that. And we're going to move heaven and earth to do what we can to get in there and grab somebody and get them out when the time comes.
I love it, man. I love it. All right. So Sean, wrap it up for us, bro. Like, what do you think?
Oh shit. Last time I said this, I had somebody walk out on my class, but it's all right. I think it's honestly that whole risk a lot to save a lot. I think that's hindering a lot of our thing, because there's really no definite definition of what that is, right? That can mean different things to different people. For example, like I might be willing to risk my life to do this, to make sure that somebody has a chance at survival, where somebody else may not even be willing to risk a first or second degree burn, right? But yet we have policies that drive these decisions that say we'll risk a lot to save a lot, we'll risk little to save a little, right? And the whole thing is like, you see that in go, no go decision making, everybody's like opinions about that. You see that in the whole survivability profiling debates. It's really boils down to the whole thing. Like, where do we define our success? If I was to jump into a room for a VES, or if I was to go into a house that was heavily involved in search the searchable space, and I come out without a victim, is that still success or is that failure? Right? For me, that's success, because we did what we said we were going to do. But there's plenty of people that would look at that and immediately say, it's too risky. We're not going in. The fire's too progressed. This is a defensive operation until we can get a handle on this fire and push in. And that's killing people, because what we have to understand is that the people that are on scene, not just chiefs and officers, but firefighters as well, what's really dangerous is the people that are just shooting from the hip, hoping that things work out, right? They really have no idea what they're doing or why they're doing it. And they hide behind that risk versus benefit analysis approach, which I think its intentions were pure, but just like everything else in the fire service, it tends to get bastardized, and we hang our hat too much on that kind of stuff, other than saying, hey, I'm going to remain educated. I'm going to know what my environment's telling me. I have the proper PPE to operate in this. And as long as we're smart with our decision-making abilities and we stay cognizant of fire behavior, building construction, reading smoke, like all of those things that encompass our decisions, whether we're going to go, then I think that we can toss that whole risk a lot, save a lot out of the window, because that translates into the whole 2 in, 2 out thing. Oh, I didn't go because we only had 2 people and it's too risky. And we're just finding way too many victims after the fire when we could have found them earlier on in the fire. And the sad part is, I know Ryan mentioned about, being a medic. I'm a medic too. Here's the problem. I mess up on my protocols and things like that. There are significant repercussions for that, right? I do the wrong thing. That's called negligence. In the fire service, we could do the wrong thing, and a lot of times it gets swept under the rug, and it's just like hey man, don't do that next time. Or we find ourselves in a conversation where we're trying to sit there and ask somebody like, hey, you saw what I saw, right? There's nothing we could have done, right? All of those things, so that you don't have that admission of guilt anymore. So that would be it for me, is don't put so much weight onto the 2 in, 2 out or the risk versus benefit analysis, and truly understand what your job is and how to do it. And that's what's going to make you the most successful.
Well said.
No, I agree. So Justin had to get off. I think he got a call, and I know Logan's having some internet issues. So the one thing that I wanted to say, and this is something that I've said before, I don't shy away from it. Those that know me know that I don't miss my words very often. I'm pretty much an open book. So if you ask me what I think, I'm going to tell you. So if you are in a environment where you are going to claim to have an aggressive search culture, that is great. And I want you to continue doing what you're doing. I think we all want you to continue doing what you're doing. Continue to train the way that you train. Continue to push for aggressive search. Putting the people first is what needs to happen. If you are not in an environment, or if you are a leader or in leadership and you do not support aggressive search, that's fine. Everybody is entitled to their opinion, right? And everybody has different search comfort. But here's what I would ask. Make sure that you're looking at it from different perspectives. Don't just look at it from the one that you've always known. Reach out to the people that have different opinions, and you don't have to accept them, but you can talk about it, right? But if you truly come down to the point where you are not going to advocate for search, then that's fine. I want you to let the public know. I want you to tell the public that if you're trapped in a house, we are not going to search for you. We are going to put firefighters when it's safe. We'll try to put the fire out, do what we can. But if we pull up and your house is on fire, we're going to immediately write you off. Because I think there are so many times, and this is why I say this, because there are so many times that people will sit there and say, we have an aggressive search culture. We're going to train on search. But then when it comes time to go in and do a search, they won't do it. They won't pull the trigger. And I feel like the citizens expect that, and that's what they deserve. So everybody's entitled to their opinion, right? If you don't want to do search, if you're not going to push aggressive search from the get-go, that's fine. Make sure that you're not going to push that ideology and then not perform on the fire ground. And that goes all the way from company officer level all the way up to the chief, right? If you're the chief and you don't want to send people in, that's fine. That's your prerogative. Make sure that your city leadership and your citizens know that so that they're informed. That's all I'm asking.
And question why you're actually doing this job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion, man. And I've worked for bosses, right? Yeah. I mean, my bosses in the past, there have been some who have been on the fence. Like when Vent or Search came out, that was something that people were kind of on the fence on. They're like, well, I don't know if I really am comfortable with that, right? And it took a little while for people to get comfortable. We just taught a class, and Sean and I were talking about this, and I think Shane, you and I had this conversation when we were down in Oklahoma. We just taught a class up in central Nebraska, up in Osceola. And we had a department that is a career combination department, and they were like, hey, we never go in without a line. We always go in with a line. So our search crew has a line, our fire tech has a line, RIT has a line. The person going up in the tree to get the cat out has a line. Everybody has a line.
That's awesome.
Right?
That's a heck of a
And so it's like, okay, that's cool, whatever, right? But that's going to slow you down, and here's why. And so we talked about a lot of different things. But even their search culture was on point, right? They always put search first, but they required their people to take in a line. So that made it really easy for us to sit there and say, hey, I get what you're saying, but here's why you should try and do it without a line, because it's more efficient, it's more effective. You can search off of the line if you're fire attack, but if you're search and you're going in behind the hose line, do search, right? And we talked about different ways to do it with and without a hose, because we're not going to go in there and tell them to change stuff that they don't want to change. But what came out of it was the discussion and the reiteration that they put victims first. Regardless of if they have to carry a ventilation fan and a pike pole and a radio and a tick and a hose line, they're going to do all that shit while they're doing a search. So that was music to my ears, right? So anyway, I want to take a second to look at the last couple questions and just make sure that we're not missing anything. This is Brandon Marksman. He said, fresh out of the academy and was just hired. I'm glad to be coming into this career with conversations like this. I learned a lot tonight. Thank you to all for your time and knowledge. Bill Blackwell said, amen. I'm not sure which part he was saying amen to, but thank you. And then John said, yes. OMG. Unfortunately, firefighters are not held to the same standard on the fire ground. Sad. I agree. I absolutely agree. And then Dave Pruitt, to round it out, said, and if they do tell you they aren't coming, move. We will come for you. I think it's true. I mean, listen, if the cops in a neighborhood, right, and I'm not going to get into the like law enforcement fire deal, but if you live in a neighborhood that has a high crime rate and they all of a sudden came out and said, hey, we're going to stop sending police officers into the neighborhood to patrol because it's just too dangerous, half the people would pack their shit up and move, right? If the fire department said, hey, if your house is on fire, we're not going to come in and get you, I guarantee you a lot of people are going to pack their shit up and move, right? That's just how it is. People aren't going to put up with that kind of stuff. So it's not fair to sit there and tell them, hey, we're here for you. Come see the fire truck. Take your kids on a tour. If your house is ever on fire, we'll come get you. And then when it comes time, you go, I don't know.
Yeah, it's you know what? Here's the thing. Every single person who's a firefighter put in an application. And on that application, there's a list of things that you are 100% required to do. And it asks, are you ready to do this? And if you check that box, then shame on you for taking the job and then going backwards on what your promise was, right? I hate that people feel so surprised when they show up and it's like, wait, you mean I actually got to do this? Hell yeah, you do. I mean, why is this like a shock to you? From day one, when you said, I think I want to be a firefighter, you knew what it was. It's right there in front of your face, right? Nobody tricked you. So if that's a problem for you, go sell some fucking ice cream. I don't know. You know, I mean, there's plenty of other jobs out there.
Walmart, Sprint, go wherever you want.
Right.
I do that all the time, man. It's the same thing. The guys that I work with it's gotten to the point where, there is a shortage, obviously, on guys who actually apply, but we've set the bar so low it's become a trip hazard. And some of these people, man, they're coming on the job because they like the schedule. We're mandatory in every day, because unfortunately the new kids, they won't show up and come work overtime, but those are the guys that you were just talking about. I don't know that they're 100% dialed in and ready to go. So it's on to us to go change that mentality, go train, understand what they're doing. And it's on our generation to do that. And I think we're getting in that right direction, honestly.
Yeah, I think so too.
There's a huge turn.
Yeah, absolutely. And the days of fist fights and stuff in the back parking lot, I mean, I'm not going to lie, it still happens. We know it. But, I see a lot more people being open-minded to looking at those things. And what we just talked about, right? People that don't want to search, people that are uncomfortable with search, people that are maybe didn't understand what going into a burning building was really like. Because we've all been there. We've all had people, and Shane and I have had this conversation. Ryan and I talked about it one time. We've all had people that were like, wait, you want me to go in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, the building's on fire. There's fire everywhere. You want me to go inside? Yeah, dude, what the hell did you think you were signing up for? Right? Like this isn't like rewinding the deal at the VCR place. Like this is actually like going to do it. Right. So, but no, I like I said, I think our culture is moving that direction. But no, I just wanted to say thank you to our guests. I know some of them had to jump off. This has been an awesome discussion. We're at 2 hours and 13 minutes. It feels like we've only been talking for 10. So I'm sure the people listening, like their hands are just shot. But a couple things that I want to mention. It was actually decided in a private chat while we were doing this live stream. We're going to look for a different software. We're going to find something that works so that it doesn't suck for everybody, including us. But I want to thank Shane, Ryan, Sean, Logan. Who else was on tonight? I think that's it. Justin. He had to go run and do a call. So all you guys, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of the discussion. For everybody that stayed and watched, thank you. For everybody that's tuning in after the fact, thank you for taking time to watch it. You probably scanned all the way to the end, so F you if you didn't watch the whole thing. But no, we're going to be doing a lot more of these, and I think the interaction was awesome. It was really fun. So with that, I will say goodnight to everyone. Be safe, take care, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.